All right. Okay. So, just to begin with the interview, I would really like to ask you the first question, which is why and how did you get into career counseling?
Right. So to be very honest, I myself, right from the 10th, I've been confused. So I chose science, and after science, I chose engineering, and a very common path which everyone gets into. But that I mean, I always knew that science was not the field. I should have at least chosen commerce, or it could be arts. For me, arts would have made more sense because now I have ended up in psychology. And after many years of making wrong decisions, I've understood that I should have always chosen arts and psychology, this thing. So I always knew somewhere, while I was doing engineering, again, I did an MBA degree. So all these times I was very unsure, what I was doing. I just kept on doing trying to copy probably my elder brother, or what others were doing. So when I started, and then suddenly after my MBA, I knew
Mhm.
I wanted to start a business. I started multiple businesses, and I came across, after 2 3 years, I came across career counseling. So I knew, it clicked. I knew that this is a need in the society. I'm sure if we take it to the next level, probably if we reinvent career counseling, make it more effective, I'm sure, I mean, this would be a very helpful product or a very helpful service in choosing the right career. And this is still the need. Although career counseling has been in existence for a long time, it's still not effective. So we are trying to use algorithms. We are trying to use algorithm-based reports, which calculates more than 5,000 combinations or more than 500 careers, which you can't do through a paper-based test. You can only match certain, like maybe 20 careers, 25 careers, right, with your hands. But an algorithm can calculate on the spot. It can calculate, more than 5,000 combinations of so many careers. So that way, it gives a more plethora of options to the student, and it does justice. I mean, the reason why a student comes to a career counselor is because he also wants to explore other careers as well, apart from the careers they already know. So, with the help of algorithms, the career counseling is made more effective. Apart from that, there are post-counseling services also. There are, apart from deciding upon a career, they also need help with other services, like maybe if someone's giving a NEET exam, right? For them, admission in the right college or NEET counseling is very important. We are in the middle of creating a NEET predictor software, which would help students, choose a better college or according to their cutoffs, etc. A JE counseling is also very much needed. We have a list of colleges where there are filters. They can filter out the required college. All these are post counseling tools which we are also preparing. So it's an end-to-end guidance which we're trying to provide them. Uh, yeah, that's it. I mean, trying to reinvent career counseling.
All right. And since you mentioned that you were interested in arts and everything, so what do you think, according to you, is the importance of career counseling? Since you are now in the field and you understand.
Yeah, I mean, interest as in I wasn't aware at that time. Now, when I think back, I know that I should have chosen arts or maybe a psychology. I was good in maths, so maybe a BSc in psychology would have been a better option. So I'm sure, I mean, at my time, there were very few career counselors. I mean, there are very few in the city itself. I think there must be hardly two or three. Nowadays, there are many career counselors available. So but still, I've seen that, students don't voluntarily go for career counseling. There are a couple of reasons which we've identified. Is one is, they're scared of the results. Like they think that, the results might show something where they might not be interested in, or, they would make a decision on their own. But that's not the case. There is firstly, if it's a standardized test, we have seen that the result will always show what they are also thinking of, right? And even if it doesn't, if it shows otherwise, then the careers which we suggest, the students are always validating with what the results come out. So we have already seen that. I mean, it would never show like an abrupt this thing, that a student is thinking of a design kind of career, and it would show like a research kind of career. That never happens. So the fear is one thing which is stopping the students from enrolling for career counseling. And a couple of things more. I mean, they're probably don't feel the need to, spend so much. I mean, it's hardly we charge 3,000 rupees for the entire process. We've kept very economical pricing. Considering the kind of services, the algorithm based reports and everything, it makes our work easier as well. So we can keep like an economical pricing. We don't have to take paper based tests. That takes a lot of manual work. But I mean, considering it's a very important decision what they don't understand. It's the most important decision, one of the most important decisions there. And if they make this decision based on an assumption, it leads to, I mean, somewhere down the line, they will definitely then come back. And when they come back, it becomes even more difficult, to make a career change. So the right age would be, in fact, even before 10th, maybe an 8th standard would be a better age to start career counseling. I think ICSC and international boards, I mean, what we've seen is state boards students from 8th don't come too often for career counseling. Only in 10th they um, inquire for career counseling. But international boards from 8th standard they do, because they have to choose elective subjects right from 8th. So, they contact a career counselor to find out whether to choose maybe economics or psychology. But in our state boards, but now the new education policy, the change in the new education policy would give them again a flexibility to choose subjects right from the 8th or 7th standard. So then we are also expecting these kind of, and it's better to make a decision beforehand. 10th standard is okay. I mean, if you're coming to a career counselor in 10th standard when you're in your 10th, it's not that late. But if you're in 8th, you can probably plan out things more beforehand, like if you're planning for a JE, for example. So you can be sure you can start inquiring, studying about a JE, about JE a bit and all those things. So you get even more time to do your research.
So, like you said, that nowadays students are very fearful about coming for career counseling because they have their preconceived notions, and might be like there might be that the results come up differently. So, like, what are
Hmm.
the challenges of career counseling? Like, as a counselor yourself, what are the challenges that you face while working with students like these?
Um, Firstly, look, now there are different age groups where parents inquire and students inquire, right? So students usually after 12th, students inquire, right? I mean, even at 12th standard till 12th, a parent would inquire on behalf of a student, right? So even if the parent is inquiring and even if the parent is forcing the student to enroll for career counseling and these things, it becomes a bit difficult because if the student is not interested in giving the test, right? And let's say a career interest test, the results are quite vague, where we can see in the results that the student was not very interested. Maybe he was convinced by his parents or forced by his parents to give the test. But then we have still designed the algorithm in a way where, let's say, there's a career interest test. If he gives yes, no, there are questions like that. If he gives no to all the questions in a career interest test, we don't get a very evident result. For us, it becomes very difficult to see his inclination towards a particular career if he gives like a no answer to almost of the questions. But in that case, also the algorithm we've designed in a way where we try to pick up it. I mean, even if let's say there are 60 questions, he till now there's no student who has given no to all 60 questions. He would come across at least one or two or five or four questions where he would take yes. And that's where we pick up, his interest category. So even if the student is not very much interested, he might show a vague result, but in that case also we have designed the algorithm in such ways. And if the student is inquiring, that's not a problem. I mean, he's anyways serious, so we get a very evident result in that case. So yeah, I mean, look, few counselings are very difficult because As I mentioned, if let's say we get a career interest graph, if it is a flat line for most of the careers, right? I mean, the careers are divided into artistic careers, research-based careers, administrative careers. If we get a flat line, then we have to assume that, the student is interested in all the careers. So in that case, through manual intervention, we have to narrow down to a career. So it becomes like a manual work. Otherwise, if we get a very clear graph, right? Let's say arts and design is showing quite high. So it becomes easier. We'll only discuss about a design career or artistic careers within.
So, like, what tests or softwares do you use?
Look, firstly, since our tests are online, right? Um, I mean, every psychology student or every psychologist must be aware of these standardized tests,
Yeah.
like a Holland's code in career interest. 16 PF is what we are using, but is in personality because it has very high reliability validity. And TAT is what we use, differential aptitude test. Is not what we use, but these are the standardized tests, right? So we have taken the references as these tests, but we cannot. I mean, we cannot frame the questions as it is because it's a copyright infringement. You can't do that since it's an online test also. So this is the base, but these are our own design tests. So, I mean, it's the same kind of questions, a similar pattern of questions, but these are our own design tests. These are known as Allegiance Educare Career Assessment Tests. So we have a copyright of these questions which we've created on our. These have high reliability validity. There's a reliability validity report, everything on the website. So
Okay. Now, since we are budding psychologists, we would really like to know that what would you recommend for someone who actually wants to get into career counseling?
right. So look, career counseling is a very small part of psychology, right? And I myself, I'm not a psychologist. I am, I'm an engineer. I'm an MBA. I've done certifications in career counseling, so we don't need to get into like mental health counseling and these kind of. If we do get encounter such cases in our counselings, we are not eligible to take these kind of. So we have to direct them to a clinical psychologist or licensed psychologist or counselors. Whereas career counseling, the look, what we have realized because we have mentors across the country, right? So our career counseling takes place in various cities in every part of India. So we have counselors, we have a list of counselors, we have mentors. They have to go through a mentor program. Now, the mentor program which we have designed is considering that apart from the theory knowledge, right? You should also have informative based knowledge. Let's say you're a clinical psychologist, right? You have a license in clinical psychologist and you're quite I mean, in psychology you have the degree or masters or PhD or whatever. But let's say while the career counseling, if you are not aware of what entrance exam for medical after 12th, right? Or what entrance exams for engineering, if you don't have the basic knowledge of these informative based queries, then as a career counselor, it won't do justice to the parents or this thing. So that is apart from theory knowledge, you're also supposed to have good informative knowledge on various degrees, entrance exams, and hopefully other things also, like a study abroad section also would help. But I mean, at least the Indian education system, you should know things about that. For example, now uh, NEP new education policy, every career counselor needs to have that knowledge, because it's already being implemented across a lot of schools in India. So all these information is very important. That is why we have a certification program, which is a dual certification program. So anyone, even if you're not a psychologist, but if you have a minimum graduation, if you have good communication skills, and if you're minimum 25 years age, because a practical experience in life also matters, when you're giving counseling. So that is the eligibility criteria for our certification program. It's a dual certification program. The first program is the theory part, which is also taught in masters in psychology, right? The different types of counselings and all these topics in the first. It's a theory-based program followed by a 1 hour MCQ test. Once you do that, you get this is a career counseling certification. So you have the theory knowledge for that. But then if you want to become a career counselor, if you want to practice as a career counselor, you should also have that informative degrees and entrance exams and the education system now. So we have a mentor program followed by a mentor program. That's a smaller program. It's a 30-40 page manual which you have to go through about entrance exams and degrees and after 12th and after 10th and then a 15-minute test. Once they do that, they register themselves as a mentor with us. Their profile goes live on our website and we give them we can start giving them counselings then and we pay them as well. So this is how we have made a certification program, which we have identified is a requirement to become a good career counselor.
All right. Also, we would like to know what are your goals for career counseling, your role and your goals.
Look, again, as I mentioned earlier as well, we are trying to reinvent career counseling, right? Now, reinventing career counseling technology is a very vital part because technology gives you, as I mentioned earlier, like what an algorithm can do, you can't do by hand, right? You can't calculate so many combinations by hand. So technology is a very important part of our. In fact, now we are not a career counseling. We don't call ourselves a career counseling company. We call ourselves a career counseling portal. So we are trying to create an end-to-end career guidance platform, which is an automated platform. So we are trying to also use, for example, let's say the first, when a student calls us, right? It's not that he would directly go for, I'm looking for career counseling. He would first ask questions, he would tell things about himself or herself that he's in certain this thing and he's confused between this, that, etc. Right? So we first gather all his confusion and we try to then on the spot we try to give him like this is what we are seeing, this kind of when we take career counseling and your problem is this is how we'll be solving your problem, right? So trying to correlate. This is known as pre-counseling this thing, right? So we are also trying to create a counseling bot where for me we can't keep telecallers for these things. We have, if there's a counseling bot where he lands on a counseling bot, it will ask, I mean, it will give you options. It's already on our website. It gives you options that are you completely confused, are you looking for information? Because if he's not complete, sometimes students are not completely confused. They're looking for information like how do I get into law, right?
Hmm.
In that case, you don't need career counseling. He's just looking for information. So there's a form there where you can select your queries. It will keep directing you to relevant questions, and then in the end, it would direct you to the right service. So, for example, if he or she is looking for information about a particular career, we have a career bank in place where there are more than 600 career bank. So they can read like how do I get into that career and all these things. If he's completely confused, then it would connect us, and then we'll do the entire career counseling process. The other things also, sometimes people are looking for jobs. They don't realize, but they call a career counselor. We start asking questions, and then we realize he's not confused. It's just that he or she is looking for a job. That's it. So we have a job portal also, which we have introduced. Then it will direct them to a job portal. It's very simple. I mean, sometimes things are very simple. It's just then when we a 5 minute discussion, they are clear, that okay, you're right. I mean, I just need this. I'm not confused. I'm looking for a job. So that way the pre-counseling part, the post-counseling part, right? The college selections and all these things. So basically, we're trying to create an end-to-end platform where these algorithms, these counseling bots, and these things would help. But you can't right now. You can't completely eliminate the manual intervention when you, uh, meaning the counseling part after you get the report. The counseling is very important. That is why we do have mentors for that. But then the post counseling, the pre counseling, there could be algorithms or there could be an online portal which could take care of informative bit where
Okay. So, like we were previously talking about, like the higher age population that comes to take career counseling. But do we actually see that those people do land up for career counseling, or is it just in theories?
You're saying that they do end up in what we've discussed, like the career which we've
No. So,
discussed.
like, do they actually come in for career counseling? Because we've talked about the difficulties that we face, but do they actually come in for career counseling, or is it just in theories?
No, no, they do. We do
They
get
do.
queries. You know, when there's an off season, like, for example, right now it's an off season for 10th and 12th. So this is a
Hmm.
season when we get most working professionals inquiries.
Okay.
Uh, so look, working professionals, I'll tell you what, there is one particular category where there are housewives, right? They've just had a kid,
Hmm.
right? And they're probably looking for something to work from home and things like that, right? Because they've left their earlier career and they've just have had their kid, or probably they have a toddler to take care of, and these kind of housewives also do come to explore more options what there are. Um, so this is one type of categories. There are a lot of other categories as well. I mean, people who are highly distressed, that look, even when these working professionals come, we have to ask them because we have to understand what the query is. Sometimes if it's an internal problem, for example, if the problem persists with their bosses or the company culture, right, or something like that, so they don't know what the problem is, right? So we try to first understand whether is it a problem with the career, because sometimes it's not a problem with their career, it's some other problem, right? Maybe. So in that case, there are solutions, like you can look for other job, right? If you're not enjoying the company culture or whatever, you can look for another job in another company. You don't need to make a career shift for that, right? Career shift is a different thing. If you know that, if I'm a computer programmer, I know I cannot sit 12 hours on a desk, right? I'm more of an extrovert personality. So in that case, I should be making a career shift, right? But then other factors, you should not like make a career shift. Then there are other solutions for that. So we have to also identify what the problem is before a working professional enrolls for career counseling. And yes, working professionals do enroll for career counseling. It's just that earlier also I mentioned we have to make sure that they know that if you're looking for a complete career shift, you have to start from scratch. If they say yes, I mean I'm willing to do that, because it even if they start from scratch, it will take at least 3-4 years to make it to the in whatever industry they'll be starting with. And at least they'll have to do 2 years, maybe a master's or a diploma, right, to enter that industry. So yeah.
Okay, so coming back to the normal like age group, our age group, like in college students, or be it matter like eighth standard students, anyone. How important is the role of parent, or how does it impact?
The parent role is very important. Um, Again, it depends on the student also. So when sometimes when we meet a student, if a student is very bold, the student, in that case, probably they don't need so much support from the parents, right? But if there are some students who definitely are looking towards the parent to probably guide them, a lot of dependency is there. But yes, I mean, parents, of course, do play a very major role. That is why uh, we have um, we have introduced certain courses also, right? Identifying these problems. There is a parenting adolescent course which we have introduced. Parenting is a problem mostly during adolescence because there are a lot of biological and other changes which adolescents go through, which the parents are unable to identify the behavior of an adolescent and all these things, right? After probably 20 years, I mean, you get matured enough, and it become parenting becomes easier. But that 13 to 20 wala age is very difficult. And the problem is because it's not the student, it's the age, right? It's an adolescent age where there are changes happening. Parents are unable to identify. That is why we have introduced a parenting adolescent course as well for parents, so that they identify that this is a common problem and this is how you can expect a behavior like this, which is quite normal, right? And this is how you should be dealing with it.
All right. So, since you've been in this industry for quite some time now, and now that the times have changed, do you think that people are viewing the meaning of life differently?
Yes, of course. I mean, students are more open-minded, right? Apart from those conventional careers, they also think of other careers as well. That's a good thing. When I started career counseling in 2012, the inquiry was very less, very few. Look, usually a very, I mean, open-minded people inquire for career counseling. A lot of open-minded people do inquire for if they're willing to explore other careers, right? And parents are also open-minded about choosing any career which the student is comfortable or which the student actually has an intrinsic interest. So it's mostly for this. And yes, I mean, nowadays, look, now firstly there's a vast database. You have Google, right? You have the internet if you want to find out about a particular career, right? So when there was no internet, we didn't have like anything, we didn't have any reference. For example, if I wanted to become a sound engineer, how do I start? Where, who do I? Because I didn't have any sound engineers in my area where I can go and talk to them how to lead into this career. Now I don't need to depend on anyone. I can just find out things on the internet, and that's what youngsters are doing nowadays. That's a good thing. I mean, they even if like in our times, even if we knew that I'm very much interested in this career, but I didn't have anyone like a mentor in that career I'm talking about to guide me as in how to start my career. But now you have the internet, you have Google, where you can refer to and find out how do I start, where do I start. And there are a lot of other institutes also nowadays, like in animation, in TV production, a lot of institutes, etc. So there are quite a few options nowadays. So yeah.
And from a constructivist standpoint, how might the counselor assist their clients in reevaluating their career related beliefs and certain assumptions that they carry? How do you think that helps?
Um, Look, there are three, four pointers which we have to let them know that um, firstly, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a fear, right? What shortlists and they're also quite skeptical about what is the legitimacy of the results, right? So we have to let them know the back end, like how the questions are framed and how we are correlating the questions, right? For example, I'll let you know. Let's say a Jyotish, right? Now, a Jyotish can't explain how they're doing, how they're analyzing, right? But in our case, we can give them example of a question, right? For example, career interest. If I give them a question, would you like to draw holes with a machine, or would you rather pass insurance claim, right? If you are given these two options, which one would you prefer more, right? If someone says, okay, insurance claim pass is very boring, I would rather draw holes with a machine. That means his interest is more towards a physical kind of activity. This is just a very small example. There are 80 such questions which are asked. So, I mean, if I've given you this example, right? It's very simple. Even you, as a layman, can can think of the correlation to this, and you can know that okay, these kind of questions obviously make sense. Aptitude test is very simple. There's no very look nowadays. There's a fingerprint and these things also which are happening, right? No one knows what's going on in the back end, right? Um, from a user point of view, you don't know what's happening or how they're analyzing, right? And we are not doctors, we are not neurosurgeons or to understand all these things. Our psychometric tests are very simple. If you read an aptitude test, agar humko pata, if you want to figure out if he's good in maths, we are taking a very basic maths test, right? So everyone can figure out ki, matlab, okay, this is how we are analyzing, and this is so this fear that how can parents do ask us that how can these tests give you like a very accurate result and these things. We let them know, look, it is very simple, straightforward. There are examples also given. You can read those examples, because reading those examples, you'll again you can understand the, okay, I mean, this makes sense. I mean, you're trying to interpret this through this, which makes sense. So that is one thing, uh, like clarity, and it's a very simple method, and it's of course a standardized, and it's the only method as of now which is the most effective method, right? So even an AI or a machine learning and all these things, although are in I mean are there in the markets, but we still rely on the basic conventional psychometric test because they are the only. There are there is machine learning also being used, but then they also take an aptitude test because you can't completely rely on like a fingerprint or a we've also introduced a face recognition technology, which is a very small part of the personality test. You can say it's an appealing factor, but we can't completely rely on a face recognition technology. So that is there, the fear is there, and then this probably brings more confidence uh, with the test taker or the parents. And yeah, that's it. I mean,
I'm sorry, sir, but before we get into the next question, should we just rejoin here because the timing is less than
Time is
1 minute?
almost up. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, we'll reach out.
Okay. Okay. So since we were talking about the constructivist theory, which is around the lines that you have to make meaning about your life, and that meaning drives you to your career, right? So how does the idea of meaning making play a role in assisting individuals to find purpose and satisfaction in their chosen careers? And if they go on that similar path, are they actually successful?
Look, considering us to be like taking a psychometric test to evaluate all these things, right? Um, for us, choosing a career which matches your interest, aptitude, and personality sums up everything, right? Almost sums up everything according to us. So if you're looking for job satisfaction, look, theory you can study as much as you want, right? Like job, there are many factors in order to be happy in life, right? It could be relationship, um, it could be a work, like what kind of company also. I mean, I also personally have written so many blogs in like what kind of company you should be choosing, right? There are family businesses. When you're joining a company, there's a corporate culture, there are family businesses, there's a startup, right? All these have different cultures also. So when you join a company, you should also know what kind of company it is and what can you expect, right? So for example, a family business would operate in a certain way. You have to understand that, right? And a corporate would operate in a certain way. A startup would operate in a certain way. So the kind of exposure you get in a startup, you can't get in corporate. These kind of queries I do get from my friends, a lot of other people also. These are very common. These are not career counseling related. These are very general problems which we have written blogs about and all these things. These are different, but for us, we only concentrate on the right career, whether the kind of task he'll be performing in that career, whether it matches his interest, personality, or aptitude or not, irrespective of where he's studying, where he's studying or where he's working, right? Even for example, now you let's say you go abroad, right? A lot of people ask us if should I go abroad or India. These are very subjective issues. There is no right or wrong in these kind of questions, right? Um, Basically, there are a couple of pointers which we have identified that unless and until you're not sure about settling abroad, you should not go abroad, right? It doesn't make sense if you don't want to settle abroad. If
Absolutely.
you go abroad, study there and come back, it doesn't make sense. You would rather study back in India. These are a couple of things which we suggest students, but these are very subjective. There's no right or wrong in, the education is better abroad or in India. Both is equivalent. It depends on what your career goals are or what your life goals are. I mean, if you want to settle abroad, then it makes sense. Again, the work culture and a lot of other the kind of bosses also. um, we've also written a blog on different kinds of bosses. There are certain bosses who are a bit bossy or dominant. There are consulting bosses. Again, it personality wise, bosses differ. I mean, yeah, so some are consultant types, they will consult. There, some are supportive. some are dominant, every personality, I mean, it would depend on their personality. These are different styles of leadership. All of them are correct. I mean, there's no wrong, and it's just that it's their own style. So you identify the boss's personality. Once you know that, okay, this is how he operates, or he or she, that comes with experience. So that happiness part in other things would come with experience. The choosing the right career path is where we can help. Other things, I mean, there are other people, we don't indulge ourselves in other things. Let's say a relationship problem. We are not a relationship counselor. So for every different problems, there are different counselors. So we can probably suggest them, if the problem um, is too, is too complicated, or, is not a very generic problem, um, then you should probably contact a counselor. I mean, in that particular field, maybe a relationship counselor or a mental health counselor, or etc. If it's a very generic problem, we have written blogs. There are, very generic problem has very generic solutions. You don't need like a very high level counseling in that.
Right. So if we say that if a person has an interest in this particular field, in a field, maybe let's consider it as a field, and
Hmm.
they have their full interest, they're dedicated to that, but they don't have that particular skill set. So how would you help the client recognize this and challenge their limiting beliefs or self-constructed
Yes.
barriers?
Skill and aptitude are two different things, right? Skill is
Yes.
something which could be learned. For example, driving.
Hmm.
Sorry. So, for example, driving is a skill. It's not an aptitude, right? So I can learn driving.
Right.
Aptitude is something which is different. Driving ke liye, there's no aptitude requirement,
Hmm.
right? So, for example, in our list of careers, there's a list called driver also. We have list from blue collar to white collar jobs, everything. So there's a
Right.
driver also in there. For a driver, you need high interest in physical activities, right?
Hmm.
To become a driver, the physical interest should be high. Aptitude, there is no requirement to be
Okay.
a driver, right? That means it is a skill, right? It's a skill which is required. And personality is maybe submissive, like cool, calm, composed, and a couple of more things. I mean, these are just at the back of my mind, which I know, but all these are, we can't memorize, every combination of every
Okay.
career. But it is just an example I'm giving. Skill and aptitude basically are two different things. For example, if I want to become a computer programmer, I should have good logical reasoning, logical mathematical. This is aptitude. So this is something which is inborn, which comes from within, something which is very difficult to learn. If I'm not good in maths, I can probably slog, and this year I can probably score good, right? If I'm not uh, aptitude wise, I mean, I'm not good in. I can slog and I can probably, clear the next year, and probably next to next year, or probably 4 years of engineering. I can slog and I can't do this. It's not practical for the rest of my life, right? If I don't have the aptitude, so I can't be struggling every day of my life, right? If I end up after engineering, if I end up as a computer programmer, if I
Hmm.
didn't have the aptitude in the first place, I should have ended up in some other career, because it doesn't make sense you do engineering and then anyways end up in some other career. So aptitude is very important, and
So
skill
what
is
if they
something which
don't?
you can acquire.
So what if they don't have the aptitude? Like, how do you challenge their beliefs that this is not something for
Right.
you?
This also becomes very difficult. We
Hmm.
don't want to demoralize a student, right? If he scores low in aptitude and these things. But I'll tell you what, parents, I mean, before counseling only tell us that, he's not good in academics, or he's not good in this and that, etc. So, I mean, it's not us. They themselves do admit that, I'm not, the student will also admit that I'm not good in studies. I don't want to study, right? I know I'm not a maths toid. Anyways, I hate maths and all these things. They tell us all these things beforehand, which shows in the result also. These aptitude tests are very simple aptitude tests. I mean, up till now, I don't think hardly I've seen very low scores in all aptitudes. I don't think I've seen any score like this. The logical maths is very easy. It's a very simple test. Even when students tell us that it is very this thing, the maths. they're not good in maths. They in our aptitude test, they will still score good or average in maths. So it's not a trigonometry, geometry maths. It's a very basic, simple calculation. So basic. Of course, I mean, if we do come across such cases where the aptitude is really low, of course and if we, let's say he says, I want to become an aeronautical engineer. So as a career counselor, we can't be too diplomatic all the time. We do have to, make the right decision and let him know that, you don't have the aptitude. If you get aeronautical engineering is something where you need very good aptitude and you have very low aptitude, right? So we do have to give them like an eye opener in at that times. Aptitude is the most important amongst those three. Aptitude is the most important. The second important this thing we give to is interest. And the third one is personality. Because personality, we believe till your academics, it is not needed. Because if you're doing psychology, someone might be doing engineering, someone medical, etc. The pattern is the same. You have to study, appear for your exam, and move on to the next year, right? Personality doesn't matter. But when you start working, the personality plays a picture, plays an important role. At that time, that is the reason why most of the people who have done their graduation in a particular field would not continue in a job in their particular field. This is a very big reason, personality mismatch. Uh, but tell your CAD's interest and aptitudes are very important.
All right. And for the last question of the interview, in your experience, how do you think clients typically respond to the notion that their career choices and certain perceptions that they have are actively constructed? And how do you like, how is this realization incorporated into the counseling process?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, sure. In your experience, how do you think that the clients typically respond to the notion that their career choices and their perceptions that they have are actively constructed? And how does this realization is how does it incorporate into the counseling process?
You're trying to say that they have spontaneously made a decision. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, they don't realize that, right? That they've spontaneously. Are you talking about already working professionals or
So
students?
any clients that come to you, how do they respond to
Hmm.
the notion about how like
Look,
how do their
firstly,
choices?
firstly, they're having problems choosing. That is why they would call a career counselor in the first
Hmm.
place, right? So they're already open. They've not made a decision. They don't have any constructive sort of realization or nothing. I mean, they're just blank. Most of the students or parents are like that. Of course, they do have some things in their mind. People who have made like as you're mentioning, like a constructive this thing they have in their mind, they would not probably come down for career counseling. They would make a decision on their own and finish things off there. They would probably later on they might come for career counseling, and then when they realize they made a wrong decision. But yeah, I mean, sometimes they do have couple of careers in their mind, like but they're unsure. They want to validate via a career counselor. That is why we have another feature in our report, which is a three aspired careers section in our report.
Okay.
So apart from suggestions from our side, what the algorithm prints, basically the recommendation, there are three lists of careers which we print. So there's a first list of strongly recommended careers. If the student doesn't like any career in that list, he would move on to the next list, average one recommended. Even if he or she doesn't like a career in the second list, there's a third list as well, average two recommended list. Even if you're not able to find anything in that, there's a three aspired career section as well. We take any three careers which the student has thought of, right? For example, if he or she has thought of become a marketing executive or an actor or a clinical psychologist, they can enter any three careers of their choice. It gives us a suitability report in the end. So it would give us a match, like the career which they are thinking of, whether it's matching their interest, aptitude, personality. So it would give us a table where it would give us a comparison of what is needed and what is their score in that. So apart from suggestions from our side, we also incorporate uh, the students' aspired careers as well and analyze that. it's a very holistic, comprehensive counseling. We try to, uh, I mean, the report is made in a way where we try to incorporate everything. What is, but yes, I mean, counselings can go up to 1.5 hours. It's a very tedious job. No, I've never done any counseling which has gotten over in 1.5 hours. It takes at least 1.5 hours, goes up to 2 hours also. So manual intervention is very important. They want to be like, even if sometimes now I have such experience that when I see a report, I'm very sure that this is the career he or she should get into. But then putting across that thing could take me 2 hours, to convince them that, this is because they want to be sure of every combination, and they want to ask why not this career, right? Why not? Why not? They want to understand everything. Of course, it is right on their part as well. I mean, it's a very important decision. So it might take 2 hours when I'm very sure that this is a career. I'm 100% sure. And I know at the end of the counseling, this is the only career which would be shortlisted. But still, they would like to revalidate all the other careers, why not, and they would like to understand through the report why this would not match and all these things. So manual intervention, manual counseling is very important.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. This was a pleasure, and we are highly enlightened about all your views and your information that you've given us. And thank you so much for taking out the time and giving us this interview.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
We
Thank
can
you so
stop
much.
the recording,
Yeah.
and then we just wanted to ask you one thing.